Haha, that looks really cute.
Oh, I love it!
Welcome to the Mike Cassidy Photography Podcast.
Thank you, big voice in the sky. My name is Mike Cassidy, and I'm a boudoir photographer from New Jersey, and this is my show. I get to talk to some of the best photographers in the world to find out how they got started, what sparks their creativity, and what hurdles they've had to overcome to get their businesses going. Along the way, we'll probably have a few laughs, but I'm here to have in-depth conversations about all kinds of things you've always wanted to know from the best out there. So stay tuned. You never know what you may learn. And singing on the podcast, 'cause I'm singing songs and I'm singing songs. Oh, hello. My name is Michael, and I am your neighbor, coming to you today from the secret underground boudoir bunker in an undisclosed location, so don't bother me. I just have a short announce today before we get into this episode. My guest on this show is Sarah Blodgett of Digital Grace Design. Sarah is a web designer and SEO consultant, and on this episode we are talking SEO. But, you know me, and in this episode, this is not your typical SEO talk. This is really more of a technical deep dive. This show has a lot of information and definitely rates a 10 on the knowledge-o-meter. Sarah is really an ace at her craft, and we cover topics that you don't typically hear in a podcast. So prepare a paper and pencil, stretch out your finger, stretch it out, and get it ready to hit that back button a few times, because you're going to be listening to something and then going back, and then listening and then going back. And that's okay. You may even listen to this episode, a couple of times to take it all in. And if you can take one concept at a time and implement it, you're doing pretty good. And that's all you can ask. And you're making progress there. SEO is one of those tiny habits, in quotes, that you should be doing regularly. It seems small, seems insignificant, and you won't necessarily get an instant result from doing it, but sticking with it and making these tiny changes to your website has an incremental effect that compounds and down the road pays dividends, which can make your business better than you realize. I think I mentioned this in the show, but SEO is like going to the gym. Doing a couple of bench presses for one day doesn't make you fit. At first, you're not going to see any results, so people often give up. Changing your body takes time, and it takes a lot of work. So if you want to be huge like me, oh my God, I'm like such a doofus, it takes time. And this is the same with SEO that we discussed today. Doing just a little bit at a time and make it a habit, and I promise you will see results. Now I'm going to go back and sing some more. Singing and singing, singing in the dun. This podcast and my website both focus on the goal of translating the art and business of photography and making it accessible and understandable to everyone. My goal is to provide the best content in photography for you, the listener. I've assembled a great team of photography guests and experts to make this happen. What I've chosen to do is create a subscriber model for my audience. If you value what I'm doing, you can become a member and support this podcast. In exchange, you'll get benefits over and above what's available for free. It's my goal to ensure that subscribers will definitely get back more than they give. I've created a membership program that brings you far more in-depth content if you want to take your knowledge of photography to the next level. Members will receive episodes with complete, unabridged interviews with our guests, Members will also get exclusive access to listen to and participate in AMA episodes. And there's more. If you would like to learn more now, head over to thephotographypodcast.show/subscribe. Now, without further delay, here's today's episode. Okay, I got you started, and we are going. My guest today is Sarah from Digital Grace Designs, and just talking a minute ago about how I just got back from the grocery store, and everyone's walking around. It looks like Night of the Living Dead. People are covered head to toe. I took a picture of myself wearing like face masks, and I don't even have face masks. I had to take like T-shirts and cut them up and start wrapping them around my head. It's like a strange universe we're in like these past couple of weeks. And Sarah, unfortunately, is right in New York City. But you said that everything's sort of okay for you. You've been doing okay
I'm
through
in Harlem,
this.
and I'm lucky that I already worked from home, as did my boyfriend, and so in that sense, our day-to-day hasn't necessarily changed that much. However, we are definitely seeing the repercussions of everything that's going on in our crazy times right now, with similar grocery store type settings and sidewalks being much quieter than they normally would, along with, masks being littered on the sidewalk, which of course is not ideal, but spending lots of time in our apartments. So we're doing okay.
You notice, what is the grocery store scene like there? Because here it's like surprisingly calm. It's just like people are walking around like normal, everyday kind of shopping. It's about the same number of people I see out there.
Yeah, to be honest, the last 2 weeks or so, we've been doing much more grocery delivery than perhaps we did before. But when all of this was kicking off, the grocery stores they sort of had a competitive feel to them where, people wanted to get in, get out, but the lines were pretty long. There were a lot of people in there. And you couldn't help but feel like we were a little close for comfort given the current circumstances. But I know now they have, 6 feet social distancing lines in order to get into the store, and they're really regulating the number of people that can go in. And likewise, they've limited a lot of the grocery store hours to, I think, give their staff more time to be at home and to rest and to clean and, be normal people.
Yeah, because that's the one point of contact it seems people need to go to get their stuff. And I tried to a couple of weeks ago to get stuff delivered, and Peapod, I guess, is and everything is filled. Every single spot you're going week. I'm like, I got to go out and do this. I can't wait like 3.5 weeks to get a bag of potatoes. So I think people got to venture out, but it's calm. It's quiet, and and it's strange, I think. And I've been talking to some other people where we're sort of at the epicenter of this here, and it's at its like peak going through. And there's some parts of the country, people are like, what the hell are they talking about? There's nothing like going on. But I'm like telling people, be ready to be locked up probably for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
In your homes as this spreads and goes across, because it's going to get you. I think no matter where you are, it's going to come through and find its way to you. So just be ready to have some activities.
Yes. Be ready to do puzzles and to bake more and whatever you need to do to fill your time.
Every day, it's like I didn't realize I was losing track of my days. I thought it was Saturday and it was Friday last week. Everything starts to become the same. But on a positive note, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but it's just a big topic that is in the forefront of everybody's lives these days. So we have you here, though, to talk about something better, something more inspirational. We're going to be talking a bit about SEO and building websites and how you can use Sarah's great steps to help your business grow. We're going to talk a little bit about what she provides for photographers and how you can take these tips and use them to help yourself grow your business and make some more money, which is why a lot of people are doing this. And what we'll talk about first is a little bit about SEO. Search engine optimization. And, this is something that has been around for a long, long time, and it seems to have this mystical air to it to people. And is this a topic that, like photographers really need to be afraid of?
Yeah, I think that SEO sort of gets a bad rap. I think that people tend to feel quite overwhelmed by it as a subject matter. And I think that it doesn't need to be scary. And in fact, if you are a photographer and you are being strategic about your SEO, whether it's about the written content on your site or adding alt text to your images or writing blogs in a strategic way, it can really make a handful of difference, a huge difference in the way that you're showing up in search results for the people that are looking for you. So I think that it can feel overwhelming, but when we break it down into like bite-sized concepts and subjects, it's really quite manageable and something that you can keep up over time in small bits, but have a really big result.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, yes. I think. You're constantly have to get in there, and maybe not every day, but maybe once a quarter or so, you should definitely be going and checking things out and updating. And, when it comes to talking about SEO, I mean, this is a bit more mainstream now. People have heard of this, and, when you're talking to other photographers, they're like, yeah, I heard of this. I know about SEO. But when people are first getting involved or they're setting up their businesses, it's probably not the thing that is on the forefront of them to tackle or on their to-do list, which is an oversight. And in the scope of everything that people have to go through, to start their photography businesses, where do you think this comes in, or how does this rank in terms of getting started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my primary focus in my business is website design, and I think that websites are one of the very first things you should be setting up in your photography business, because even if folks are finding you on social media, they're going to want to click through to your website to get more information, to see a larger body of work, to get details on how they can work with you, etc. And in creating your website, I think that SEO should be something that you're looking at from the get-go when you're launching your site, because the better you set yourself up for success from the beginning, the faster you're going to see results over time. Because Google really does reward quality, consistent content. And so if you start with a solid framework and continue to build from there, the results are going to pay off. So
you don't have that much catch up to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think if you have to go back and you've been in business for a long time, it can feel that much more overwhelming. But if you start at the beginning when you create your first website, then all of the work that you're creating from there will be created in that strategic fashion already.
And your website now is your storefront. That's how people find you. It's like having a store and not putting a sign up on it. If you're going to have a brick and mortar type of a store, I think that's the way that people need to approach that. And people, I know the way that people find me, it's predominantly Google. They're going on Google, typing in, wedding photographer, portrait, whatever it is in your area. And that's where you need to do what you can to kind of show up in these listings. Now, it seems that, and I'm hardly an expert on this, but I try to keep up on the topic of SEO, and it seems like this is always evolving. There's always new things that, you're told to look out for. And it can be a little confusing in that front because you don't know who to listen to or what's going on. But if there are like a few basic fundamentals that people should be doing. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that every page of your website should always have a page title and meta description that you set for them. And if you're not sure what these terms are, when you do a Google search and you see all of the different websites that pop up, the kind of header bar that describes who the business is and what they do, that's the page title. And then the little blurb that comes below that link is the meta description. And you want to be really clear in that page title what the content is that's going to be on that page so that, Google knows what the content is and they're more likely to bring you up in search results. And then the meta description should sort of serve as a little mini ad about what folks will find when they land on that page. So being intentional about setting those up for each page on your website within your website builder is a major thing that I would suggest. I think also ensuring that every page on your website also has one piece of text that's tagged as what we call in SEO speak as an H1 tag. And think about this as if that serves as the title of your essay that is that page. So if every page on your website is a freestanding essay, what would you call that essay? So if it's, let's say, you're a New York City wedding photographer, your H1 tag might be something like Digital Grace Design provides wedding photography for New York City couples that are looking to create memories or something like that.
Jump in and ask you one question here, because these things are going to go back a little bit. And I know that, there's lots of website builders. I know you're aligned with Showit. People are using a lot of WordPress, there's Squarespace. And when you go into these builders and create a page, hit new page or something like that, sometimes these just pick default names and people don't realize it. It could just be naming your page 12, page something. So what is the difference between this actual text name and say like the page title? Because they can be different. They're not necessarily the same.
Yeah, and every website builder will be different in that sense. So I can't speak to all of them necessarily. But you want to, I know, for example, in Showit, when we create a new page and we call it, let's say, home versus page 12, that will then become part of your link. So if it's my website, it would be digitalgracedesign.com/home versus page-12. And that link gives Google an idea of what's on the page. It gives folks that are seeing the link an idea of what's on that page. And then, in addition to calling it whatever you'd like to call it officially for the link structure there, then you'll add separately the page title and meta description that allows you the opportunity to give a little bit more depth into what's on the page, and also add in, your brand name and things like that, so that people have that brand recognition as well.
So if I'm making a page for my beach photography, and it's a brand new page in my web builder, I want to make sure I'm going and actually calling the actual page something like beach-photography or New Jersey beach photography, and not just leaving it a random kind of a page 12 type of an actual page name.
Exactly. And that's something that you just mentioned in keeping it beach-photography. I know that sometimes we think that we should take out that dash.
Put it all together.
Yeah, because that just seems easier. If, let's say, you're on a podcast and you want to share a link, or, you're linking from somewhere else on a different site. But I would recommend keeping in that dash, because that dash sort of works as Google's space. And so sometimes if we take out those dashes, things aren't grammatically correct anymore, and they mean a different thing. And so when you can, I would recommend leaving in those dashes just to be grammatically correct in SEO grammar.
So as a best practice, we should leave dashes in there. Now, one thing I've always thought about too is can we be too long on these page descriptions? Are they better to be shorter, or should we just be more natural? Say if it is Jersey Shore beach photography or something, is that too long, or should I just cut it down to beach photography, or doesn't that really make too much of a difference?
I think I wouldn't go too long, because then it's, kind of a hassle for folks to search for or type in manually. That said, I think that if you do something that is location specific and it doesn't add too much bulk or length, I think it can be great to bring that in, because it just adds in that location value a little bit more strongly.
Yeah. And then when you mentioned H1 tags, now this may be not something that most people know, but they should know.
Sure.
And that's not something, again, you're probably going to see in your drag and drop website editor. You may create a title, but often it's not showing you. I know my website comes out of Wix, and sometimes you actually have to go deeper into the text settings, and there are some drop-down menus where you can pick your heading number from 1 to 6 or 1 to 7, wherever they go to. So I think that sometimes manually needs to be set up. It may not always be automatic for people. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's really important to do, especially for those H1 tags, because it does tell Google what the subject of the page is. And so it can be really helpful. And a lot of times when we're working in website builders, if we add a piece of text in a particular style or font, there are default settings. And sometimes we pick a piece of font because it looks pretty in that spot, or it's bigger or bolder, and you want to punch out a piece of text. And from a design standpoint, that might look awesome. However, it might, on the SEO standpoint, mean that you all of a sudden have 12 H1 text pieces, and then Google goes, oh gosh, I have no idea what this page is about.
So it's creating a hierarchy.
Yeah, absolutely.
An outline on that page. And so we're using our theoretical example here about my beach photography. When I create the page, I'm going to name it Jersey Shore Beach Photography .html or HTML, however your service does it.
Sure.
I'm going to create the metadata, which may not be on your page builder too. That could be hidden in there or something, but you're right. That's like the description. So you have to go in and write the fabulous photography on the Jersey Shore for all families and blah, 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 blah. You're going to write a description in there. And then when I'm presented with this blank page, or if you're using a template, on the actual physical part of the page, I'm going to create words that look like a title. And again, put Jersey Shore Beach Photography, go into my editor, find this place to create that as an H1 tag. And that's going to sort of be the main top text on that page, which declares that page.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I know. There's so much to think about.
But it's not that bad once you get done.
And I think that once you understand kind of the hierarchy of how those things work, it tends to make sense. You know, that's why I like to equate it to the essay, because in school we all wrote essays at some point. So just make sure that you're titling each page as if you're giving it the title of an essay so that folks know what they're going to be reading when they go on that page.
And how about something else or another, when I'm creating this page, a few other things I need to put on there just to make sure it's grounded? Yeah,
absolutely. I would always make sure, too, with your images, especially because we are thinking in the photography base, to really make sure that you're adding titles and descriptions for your images that tell Google what's in the photos. Because, you know, Google is crawling your site, but they don't look at photos in the same way that we as humans do. So you're going to want to add what we call alt text to each photo that describes the photo as if you're describing it to a blind person. So this isn't necessarily a spot to jam in a whole bunch of your favorite keywords. So if you were looking for New Jersey beach photography, you're not trying to put that in everywhere you possibly can. Google will see past that. They will be on to you, and they know that you're being spammy.
So there's no cheating. We can't. No. Those days are gone.
The days are gone when you can just hide a million keywords in your footer or like put them in the same color as your background. You can't do that.
Those 2007 tricks don't work anymore.
No, please do not do that, because Google may actually ding you for that, and we don't need that.
Yeah, and well, this is interesting, and I'm just going to jot a note to get back to some of these bad things that shouldn't be done. But in the images too, going back to my theoretical beach page, and I have my page and I'm writing a little text and I want to drag an example photo on there. Where do we, because I drag in or upload the photo, but you know, again, this is going to vary from service to service, but how do people go and add that alt text, or generally where do you find that?
Yeah, there's often, it depends on your builder, but if, let's say in Show It, you can click on the photo and there's an actual spot that pops up in the right-hand panel for that. That said, other builders have, you know, an SEO settings tab for a given page, and you can go in and do that. Or if you're adding a photo in WordPress, you can click on the photo and look at those settings and add alt text there. A lot of times, even if you're uploading a photo to add to a blog post in WordPress, for example, when you go to add it to your post, it gives you the opportunity to add that alt text.
Right. And this is different. Again, it's not the same through every website builder. You know, sometimes you go right-click on the image and there'll be a settings menu or a more info menu, and somewhere in there, there's alt text. But then there's also another field in there that we see sometimes too, which is image description. Yeah. I think. And what's the difference between those?
Yeah, absolutely. So with image description, it's different platforms call them different things, but a lot of times the description will actually be the alt text. It just depends on what your platform calls it. One bar I know within Show It, they would call it the title, and that would be where you might put in like your business keywords that are related to the photo. So like New Jersey, Long Beach, beach photography family session, something like that. And then in the alt text, that's where you would describe the photo itself, like mother and daughter in yellow dresses play in the sand together, something
to
like
be
that.
Descriptive. What you're writing in that alt text should actually just be what's in that photo and nothing else.
Yeah. Like, don't get too complicated. Yeah, just describe it. Because that also comes into play with folks that might be visually impaired that might be looking at your website as well, because they'll rely on that alt text to understand what they can't see.
And the reader will actually read out the description of those images that are on the site. And one thing I also think that that we should get to people that you're not going to see this when you're viewing the web page. These things are not visible. So I think that's why sometimes they're often overlooked. And so this is a good first homework assignment for people. You're not doing anything else, so you might as well go and do this, is to go on their website and look through their images and check out some of this alt tags and other image descriptions that are on there. Okay, so we're working on my theoretical web page. We got my title, my H1 title, and we're adding a little bit of text. Like, how much text or what should I be writing on there too? As far as I guess you don't want me to go on my web page anymore and put beach, both photo, and put that in there 500 times. That's probably not going to be too helpful, I'm guessing.
Yes, you are absolutely on to me. I'm so sorry to break it to you.
That's what I want to do.
I know.
Oh, man.
That's a great question. And in terms of length, you're going to hate this answer, but it depends for length purposes. If you're writing a blog post, let's say, where it's really just covering a session, you might be able to get away with something as little as 300 words. If you're writing a quality kind of major piece of helpful content on your website through a blog, let's say, you're going to probably end up being closer to, say, like 1,500 words or more. It just sort of depends on what the purpose of the content is. And in terms of the, cramming in beach photography all over the place, one, Google is smarter than that. And two, we don't want to be spammy. So think about other keywords or words that are related to beach photography that might kind of clue in Google to what you're writing about, but also think about from the standpoint of what people are searching for on Google that you can include instead or in addition to. Because if all of your blog posts are all about New Jersey beach photography specifically, then you're in essence competing against yourself for search results. And that's no fun.
Right. And I guess it's good to have a few photos in there if it calls for it. But I think the key here is to be very natural in creating this. You don't want to start jamming unnecessary things in there or too many words. You just want to have great content, I think. And we'll see this theme going through this whole interview today. So on this theoretical beach page, I'm going to write some descriptive text on there. It's good to put in a few photos. I guess that's good for the people too, because they want to see what's going on this. And the one thing I always struggle with, and I try to do, is not write one sentence or one paragraph. I really tried to have a pretty long descriptive page of whatever it is, or a bunch of descriptive text on this website, maybe to get into even a little bit more detail. Is that something good to do?
Yeah.
Not going crazy, but adding more text.
Yeah, I think that's great as long as it's adding value. So let's say you have a blog post that's about your favorite beaches to shoot family sessions at. That could be great, because then folks that are searching for beach photography or, Long Beach photography or a different beach photography, that blog post might pop up for that. And so then you also present yourself sort of as an expert, because you have all of this helpful insight that perhaps someone looking to do a family session on the beach while they're on vacation for the first time doesn't have. So I think that really fleshing out those concepts and providing helpful information is always going to be great, especially if it pertains to the overall subject matter that you're writing about.
And then when I get this page all finished too, and looking over, make sure everything is spelled correctly, and I'm going to make it, now you can drag and drop what a lot of these editors can do it the way that you want. But SEO, there's more to it, I think, now than just the physical changing things or making the alt images or alt text on websites. There are things now that Google looks at, such as site speed and whether your site is mobile friendly, and also even if your images are too big, which these are some concepts which may not be initially in someone's forefront to take a look at. So why don't we talk a little bit about these maybe not so obvious kind of things that people can do to help give themselves a little boost on their webpage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that having a great mobile site, which is one of the things that you mentioned, is going to be really key, because we know that so many folks today, especially people that are looking for photographers, are clicking over, say, from like Instagram or social media. And so you want your mobile experience to be just as lovely as your desktop experience, because you never know where people are going to meet you for the first time. Additionally, from the SEO standpoint, Google has told us already that they are often valuing the mobile experience as much or more than the desktop experience. And so if you're not having a mobile-friendly version of your site, you're really just like leaving yourself in the dust, which is not fair
to be losing half or more of your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be super key. It doesn't mean that the experience needs to look exactly the same as your desktop version, so you can make things look different. I know with Show It in particular, we get to design the mobile experience uniquely and separately so that we can change things around based on that experience. But definitely, no matter what builder you use, take the time to make sure that that looks good.
And go ahead. I mean,
no, not at all.
Off.
And then from the image standpoint, the sizing sort of depends on how you're using the image. If you're exporting a bunch of images, say from like Lightroom or Photoshop or something like that, I think that it's often safe to export most images, unless it's going to be like a full width header banner image, at like 1,500 pixels on the long side. And then you're probably also going to want to run those pictures through something like JPEG Mini to compress their file size even further.
Yeah, there's no need to have 40 megabyte files because you think they're going to look great on your web page.
Yes. And so I think that remembering to size things appropriately and then compress them will only serve you for your speed in a positive fashion.
And I'm going to jump back. I wanted to cut you off about this mobile. Sure. And I know me, that's not something I'm so used to sitting at my desk and designing in terms of desktop. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm in Wix and they have a little button, and when you click it, it kind of mashes everything down into a mobile view. And I guess these automatic mobile makers are not always perfect, so you do have to go in there but when the one thing I always hated that, because when you're making a website for a mobile device, it seems like you're just smashing everything into a tiny little, very long column. Mm-hmm. It's just one long scroll. So what are your takes on, do you necessarily want everything on your desktop site to be in the mobile site as far as a user experience goes, or anything that you just want to keep it simpler? Yeah,
I think that that's a great thing to point out. There are often things on sites that I design for folks where I leave, a special detail out on mobile just because it will impact the user experience. So yes, I think a lot of times the mobile design is a little bit more simple, and I think that that's totally okay. Also considering, there are some things that don't really work the same way on mobile. Like you can't hover over something and see it change color in the same way. So really being intentional around what may or may not be totally possible in the same way on mobile as it is on desktop.
And it's one thing I noticed, just my personal experience, and I only changed this maybe 3, 4, or 5 months ago, and I had my photo galleries on my main website in kind of like a grid, or they spanned like the whole page. You just scroll through from top to bottom, and then for some reason, I never looked at the mobile version of that page. And when I clicked over to the mobile version, all it did was make like a gallery that was like 35, and I was like, this is crazy. So I think you have to be a little careful. Now it's trickier though to put galleries, I think, on a mobile to kind of have a user experience that is not like scrolling through 85 photos in a real long stream.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that one thing that I always recommend that people look at on mobile as well is check out your contact form on mobile, because I've seen people's websites on mobile where the submit button is hidden, because if we're embedding, let's say, like a Dubsado code or something like that from an outside CRM, sometimes things don't format exactly the way that we think that they will. So please do not lose out on those leads and potential clients by having that happen. That makes me so sad.
Yeah, if you wondered why all your people stopped contacting you, that could be a reason.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to touch on things here is not necessarily things you're doing on your website, but I thought we can talk a little bit about something like the Google Search Console and how that can be important to photographers. I mean, you could do shows and shows about this, but maybe we'll just talk a little bit of a few basic things about the Google Search Console. And if you don't know what it is, get a pen and paper.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that Google Search Console also ties in really, really closely / hand in hand with Google Analytics. I know a lot of website builders include, an analytics type dashboard. I think that's great. I think it's also helpful to add Google Analytics to your site as well, even if just from the standpoint that it makes it easier to verify your site on Google Search Console. So I would almost always recommend that you add a Google Analytics user ID to your website. It generally starts with a UA dash tons of numbers. And the difference between Analytics and Search Console mainly lie in this idea that Google Analytics will show you what people are actively doing on your website when they get there. So where are they clicking? Where are they coming from? Is it from social media? Is it from, you were published in a publication and people are clicking back to your website, that sort of thing. Whereas Google Search Console will tell you the types of terms that people are searching for where your site is showing up as a search result. It also gives us insights into, for that particular search term, how are you normally ranked? Are you number 25? Are you number 3? And also how often people are seeing your website coming up in search results, and also how many times they're clicking on your website for that search result. So it can be really impactful to know how you're showing up in search results, for what terms, and then also allow you to be strategic around potentially creating additional or new content catering to those search terms that you really want to rank for, or maybe that you didn't think about that you could rank for.
Yeah, and Search Console is something, again, everybody needs to know about. And it's one of those things that's going to be a little bit of work. Mm-hmm. And just for the sake of people learning about this, Google Search Console is a completely different Google thing than Google Analytics. They're two different websites. They're two different services. So you may know about Analytics possibly. And a lot of websites, when you're signing up, they say insert your Google Analytics code in here. But the Search Console, and I don't know the exact web address. You just have to go on and search your Google Search Console. It used to be called Google Webmaster Tools or something, but they changed the name. And in there, you can see which are your pages, how people are finding them. Like she said, if people are finding you by Jersey Shore beach photography or what search terms that you're using, it shows you what links people are linking to your website, and it shows you lots of information that you can then in turn take and use to make your website even better, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing to note that's cool about Google Search Console is if you make some major changes to your website, maybe you're doing exactly what we talked about a little bit earlier, where you're going back in and you're, providing those H1 tags and you're adding all those page titles and meta descriptions. But now you're like, well, man, I don't want to sit back and wait for Google to find this eventually. I want them to know about it now. You can submit your site and or individual pages on Google Search Console for Google to recrawl, so that hopefully they will notice your changes sooner. And so, while the ever-changing and all-powerful Google gods are not necessarily things that we can control, we can kind of push them in the right direction.
Yeah, that's useful and to go in there, and you're not going to damage anything by going in that Search Console and looking around, and it may take a little while for people to get used to the things that are in there, and there are some, it shows about your performance and how many clicks your website is getting, but also impressions, like where you're showing up in your search results. So that's very, very important to get in there and use that as a tool where you can, and little by little, take it step by step, and familiarize yourself with these. But they can make big differences, can't they? And getting some feedback.
Just allow you to think curiously about things. Like if you thought that perhaps you were really going to rank for New Jersey beach photography, and a lot of people are seeing your site, you're getting lots of impressions, but people aren't clicking. You can then think, okay, well, why might they not be clicking? Let me go do some research and see, what my competitors are putting in their page titles and descriptions that is maybe helpful that I should include as well, or I should include something similar so that I can kind of do some testing and see if maybe that changes things.
And you may be surprised on what keywords Google is. You know what my number one keyword is, because I'm looking at it right here: erotic boudoir.
Whoa!
I don't know where that. But you would be interested to see the things where you rate, and I want to talk a little bit about this keyword. But right in that search console, it will show you hundreds of keywords. In my case, it's over 1,000 for my website. And what are keywords and why are they important for photographers?
Yeah, absolutely. So keywords are typically things that you want people, like you want your website to show up for if people are searching for them. So if you are a beach photographer in New Jersey, a key phrase or set of keywords might literally be New Jersey beach photography. So there are things that you want to ideally rank for in search results that you think other people are looking for. Right.
And I don't want to get too deep into this, but there are ways to find out the most popular keywords or the most searched keywords for a particular topic. So say if I have Jersey Shore beach photography, but there's some other term that is actually more popular, you may want to feature that other keyword somewhere in your content.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many like official SEO websites and tools that you can use. And they're great, don't get me wrong. But like Google Search Console can be so helpful, and it's free. So
it is free.
Yeah. I mean, free is always a win in my book. That's always good.
So essentially, they're giving you the tools to make your website better.
Yeah.
Right from Google.
Yeah.
It's free.
And
go
the
in there.
people that have all the power too. So
right. So you can change. Yeah. So that is everybody's homework assignment from this, is to get into that search console, familiarize yourself with this, see what your keywords are, because you may be a bit surprised, and maybe there's things you thought people were searching you and they're really not, because they're not showing up on the list.
Yeah. And it's something that you can track over time. Like, don't go crazy and look at this every day. You will drive yourself nuts. Similar to like if you were to weigh yourself every day, you would drive yourself nuts. So, if you look once a month or something like that to see how you've evolved or changed, I think that that's great.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I always tell people that good habits are things that you don't see immediate results from. Mm-hmm. And SEO, I think, is kind of like going to the gym. If you go to the gym once, you're not going to be big and muscular, but over time, then you start to see those in improvement. So sticking a keyword in here or doing this, it's not like tomorrow or next week, suddenly your traffic is going to double. Does that sound like a fair statement? It's something that tends to gradually increase over time and months. It's a long-term thing.
Yeah, it tends to be I would say give it 3 to 6 months, which I know can be hard. We live in a society of immediate gratification.
We need it now.
And SEO is, for better or for worse, not really one of those things. And I think, too, it can be hard because we can be doing, theoretically, all the quote-unquote right things. But it also depends a little bit about, what the other people that do what we do in our area are doing. If, let's say, there's another New Jersey beach photographer that's been in the business for 15 years and he's been writing blogs every Wednesday for all that time, it's going to take a lot longer to catch up to him than if maybe you live in a very small town and there's no other beach photographers. You have to look at it with some context, too.
Right. And this is what we're going to roll into here, talking a little bit about content and content SEO and blogging. So maybe you can tell people a little bit about what content SEO or content marketing is and how people can use that as well.
Yeah, content SEO and content marketing can kind of rope in a bunch of things, but the biggest feature or factor of it is probably going to be summed up in, let's say, like your website copywriting and or your blogging. And it goes beyond just, writing blog posts about your recent sessions. It goes into, other topics that are related to what you do that help your ideal clients or provide them value above and beyond just like, what are your services? So giving helpful tips or guidance or providing them value in different ways.
So wait. So what you're saying is blogging isn't old-fashioned? You mean this wasn't something from back in 2010 I shouldn't be doing anymore? You mean it's relevant now?
It is. It really is. I know. I'm sorry. It definitely still holds weight, especially if you're doing it strategically. I think that it can feel overwhelming to feel like you have, at the end of a wedding season or at the end of a summer beach season, like a million sessions or weddings to blog about. I totally get it. But also think about, in addition or instead of that, perhaps thinking about other value that you can provide your potential clients and writing about that. Think about those most commonly asked questions that you get over and over and over again that you can just write a blog post about. Then you can come up in search results for that. You also seem uber prepared when someone asks that question, and you can just refer them to that post. And it saves you time in the long run because you won't have to write out that answer a million times.
Yeah, and the big fault, I think, of photographers of all genres is exactly that. All they do is blog sessions. Mrs. R's session, the Joneses' wedding, and which is nice. Mm-hmm. We like to see your pictures, but I think that does nothing for people in terms of building like authority, or basically Google doesn't care about Mrs. R's session, to be honest with you, in that sense. What Google tends to be centered on now is giving people the best information or directing them to who's going to give them the best answer for their questions and give them the best content. So what should people be writing about, do you think, in photography now? Yeah,
I think that it sort of depends on your sector of photography, what your focus is. But for instance, if let's say you're a wedding photographer, maybe you're writing a blog post about, your tips for the perfect wedding day timeline, or maybe you're talking about your favorite places to shoot at XYZ wedding venue, or which then you can show up in search results for that wedding venue too. In addition to, if people are looking for wedding photographers, that's actually how my sister found her wedding photographer.
Right. Right.
Or, if you also do engagement sessions, talking about your top engagement session locations in Jersey City, New Jersey, or things like that are helpful, are still location related to where you are subject matter related to where you are. If maybe you are someone that does IPS or in-person sales for your photography business, the best ways to showcase your family photography prints or something like that, frames and albums and all of those fun things.
Boy, this sounds hard. It's so much easier just to write a Mrs. Jones and here's her beach pictures. Oh, man.
But in the long run, I feel like you have all the answers. And so in some ways, I feel like this is easier than writing your millionth blog post about Mrs. R's session because it's new information and you're not having to kind of scrape down into your barrel of, oh gosh, how do I describe this session differently than...
But that was so easy to do, Sarah. I mean, it was so simple just to take my photos and put them on there. But what it seems though, and we talked about a little bit this earlier with this bad SEO and things not to do, is that Google is just getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And SEO is evolving to be more about the user. And at this point, Google is a giant company. They're using giant computers and natural language processing and other things that they're using to analyze what people are writing on their blog pages. They're not just looking at the words, but they're trying to create context and see what you're writing and piece everything together to give it meaning. And Google wants to show the pages that have the best answers to searchers' queries. So searches about photography, they're often informational. People are writing about how can I do this, or why can I do this, or where can I find this. So should people be writing blog posts really that answer questions like that? Is that helpful?
I think that can be really impactful, even if just to give you kind of a frame within which to write. It gives you a subject matter, and it gives you, something to speak to. So I think that it definitely can be impactful to think about it in a question kind of a format.
And I shouldn't be sticking the word boudoir 300 times in my blog post either.
I hate to break it to you, but I don't think you should. But maybe you can write a blog post about, the best lingerie for your sessions, or the confidence that goes into a boudoir kind of a session, or...
So the key here is you're going to get out of this really what you're going to put into it is I think the bottom line now. There's no shortcuts. And if I sit down, and I'm a pretty prolific writer, I'll go on there and I'll write, blog posts a couple of times a month about a very specific topic. And what I try to do, you can tell me if this is right or wrong, is I always think in terms of answering a question. Like someone may be thinking, like of a customer asked me about what should I wear to, or what are the important things to bring to my boudoir session. I can write something, the 5 most important items to bring to your boudoir session. And even though it may take me a while to do that, or the 5 top poses of 2020, or whatever the case may be, these are the things that people seem to be typing into Google, and that's going to funnel that traffic to you.
Yeah, and I think, too, another thing that goes into SEO is how long we can keep people on our website. If people leave really quickly, that's what we call a bounce rate. And we don't want people to leave quickly because Google then views our site as, not valuable content or something like that. And so with your blog posts, you can also think about subject matters that you can expound upon further, in the sense that then you can link a new blog post to an old blog post. And then you're keeping folks on your website longer, because then they're like, oh, I should read that blog post too. So think about different angles even that you can connecting
your own pages.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm all jacked up on Popeye's sweet tea. Excuse me while
I love it.
Get a sip here. But when I am writing my blog posts, again, how much should I be writing here? Is longer better in this case, or now are they watching me? Is Google trying to see whether I'm a good writer? Should I write 1,000 words, 500 words, or how much do I need to put in there?
Yeah, I read a statistic sort of recently that said something like the best performing blog posts had something like 1,600 words per blog post, and that's clearly not an exact science, and I may be remembering slightly differently. But I think that the main thing is write as long as it's going to take you for you to create a quality post. If you're getting into just kind of rambling, maybe it doesn't need to be any longer. And I think it also depends on, how pithy the subject matter is that you are writing on. So I think in most cases, if you're answering a question thoughtfully, you're probably going to be in that kind of 1,500 word range. And I think it'll surprise you how quickly you actually get there.
And the thing I've learned about writing, and I tend to be a writer when I get going, is it takes a little practice. At first you're thinking, oh my God, I have to write and write and write. But then as you get used to it, like anything else, the words just start to flow a little bit. And it's not that you're trying to take something you could have done in 2 paragraphs and expand it out, just putting a lot of ums and uhs in there to expand the content, but really starting to get into detail. And I think it's something that you do more and more. And I wouldn't worry too much about writing for length at first. I think the more you start to write, you'll naturally get a little bit more detailed and involved in that. And then you'll find yourself getting longer and longer. And I always stick pictures in my blog posts too. Is that important to do there too?
I think that that's great to do. I think that, as people, we're very visually based people. And then it also gives people the opportunity to see your work, which, let's be real, what you're doing is, people are coming to you for your work. They want to see your photos. So I think that that's great. I think it's also great to show people examples of what you're talking about, because we all learn differently. So while I might read something and understand it, someone else might need to see a picture to better understand what you're talking about.
Is it good to link out to a lot of things in there too? Should I have my own links, but outside links?
Yeah, I think it's great to have outside links. I wouldn't go overboard per se, or just put them in just for the heck of it. That said, too, I would, if you can, when you link it out in a new window or in a new tab so that folks aren't totally leaving your site. But I think that's great. And you're helping that person's SEO that you're linking to. So that's kind of nice karma.
It's a little favor.
Yeah. And I think, too, with blogging, don't think of it as just an end-use product as the blog post. You can repurpose your blog posts for social media post content, or, include it in emails to your email marketing list, or use it on
podcast episodes.
Exactly. So yes, it might feel like work in the moment, but its use cases can multiply over time.
Yeah, I think that the bottom line here is it is work. And I always thought of a website as a little bit maybe as a spider web, and the bigger you could build that web, the more it's going to trap the flies in there. And by writing these blog posts and writing other information or more in-depth content, you're going to get more of these flies. They're going to be going onto Google, and you're going to have more pages, and you're more likely to build some traffic, which in turn, I guess, boost your website. So all these things I think are created, but it's work. There's no shortcuts. I mean, I can't buy blog, but it's not going to help me.
No. And please don't do the things that feel icky. Like if you get an email asking you to let people write a whole bunch of blog posts on your site or buy backlinks, please don't do that. It's like Instagram. You don't want to buy followers. It's just icky. And
Google is smart, and they probably know.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. And you also don't know what you're buying until you see it, and sometimes the quality is not good.
So you got to do it yourself. Yeah. You can't send somebody to the gym for you to get muscle. Right. You got to go. You got to hit the weights. You got to do the. Yeah, I need that. That's what I got. Now I'm trapped. We can't even go to the gym anymore.
It's terrible.
So I haven't been, and I'm a jujitsu person. So I'm used to going 2 to 3 times a week to get beat up by people. So now I haven't been doing that for a while.
With your blogging.
That's what I'm doing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about your forte here too, which is websites and website design. And all these topics we talk about sort of come together here. And when it comes to photographers, not everybody has a great website. And I'm looking at people's websites a lot, and there's a lot of bad ones out there. What are some common mistakes you see on most photography websites?
Yeah, and I think that especially for photographers, because our industry is so visual, it's really important that our websites properly reflect the quality of our work. So one, making sure that it looks just as polished and high quality as your art does, because that's key. A lot of times I see that folks don't list their location on their website. I do a lot of website reviews, and you would be shocked to know that. And photographers are very much location specific, unless, let's say, you're a destination photographer, and that's a whole other subject matter. But really make sure that your location is on your website, probably in your footer of every page. If you have a studio, do list the address, because Google really sees that address and goes, oh, okay, they are local. That's great. I think also making it really clear right off the bat who you are, what you do, who you serve, and where you do it. Really answering all of those questions so that from the moment that people land on your website, they know that you're the perfect person to help them with what they're looking for. It helps Google. It also helps the people that land on your site. I'd also say making sure that every page needs to end with a clear call to action. Where do you want them to go next? And tell them that. Because if we don't tell them that, odds are much greater that they will choose to click off and go somewhere else. So tell them where you want them to go next. After your home page, is it your services page? Or after your services page, call them to contact you, that sort of thing. And also make sure that your email address is listed somewhere on our site. I know that a lot of times I hear from clients that they only want to have people reach out to them via their contact form. And I think that that's great. And sometimes people are not ready to take that leap or are not ready to fill out that form because it feels official. So let people meet you where they want to meet you. And if it's via email, that's great too. So include that as well.
And websites too, maybe you can speak to a little bit about this, or really a reflection on your business in terms of your image. And what always puzzles me is I'll look around sometimes and see some, I'll talk about what I do in like boudoir photography, and you'll see these people, fine art, exceptional boudoir photography, and they have some website that looks like it was put together by like a third grader and just cobbled together, and their message is not really in line with what the text is trying to say. So that's pretty important, I would imagine, too, is presentation. And
absolutely, because really when you think about it, your website is often the first impression that people have of you. They don't necessarily always get to meet you in person before they hire you. And so really making sure that it gives off that look and feel that you are aspiring to create in the experiences that you create in person. So if you are really thoughtful in the experiences that you create, your website should match that as well. And there's a lot
No, go ahead.
There's a lot of design decisions that we can make to depict that, and ways to write copy that can match that in an intentional way.
Yeah, and your company, which is called Digital Grace Design, you do very good work, because I'm a creeper. I was looking on your website. I was looking through some of these ones that you did, and that's why you're on the show, because you're on the ball, doing a good job.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work to do that. It is very difficult, and I've struggled through it. And if a lot of people don't have time to do this, but it's so, so, so important, especially if you want to grow your photography business, to have a website that is on spot. If you want to be a fancy photographer, your website needs to look the part, and everything about it needs to reflect that for that sort of brand image that you have. And if I were to come to you and say, hey, Sarah, I'm a fancy photographer in New Jersey, and I need a new website, how does that proceed? How do you work with your clients and find out where you need to put them?
Yeah, so I think we almost always hop on a call and really dig deep into where you are in your business and where you are looking to step into next, because your goals and the areas in which you're looking to grow your business can deeply inform the way that we go about your website. In terms of the material that we put on there, and also things like if you're looking to, for instance, get into speaking or get into a different area of photography, how do we include that and structure your site from that capacity? We really get into like why you do what you do, and all of the thoughts around how your company has been built and where you're looking to grow from there. From there, when we dig into the website design process, we typically start with the homepage and really dig into that first, because I think that really sets the tone for the rest of your site as a whole, and it's the most important page on your website. We get strategic around how we want folks to use the site, make sure that the mobile looks just as nice, always dig into SEO, of course, then always have, video tutorials and such like that, so that you can update your site as well. Because I think I hear from a lot of clients that their existing or past site is one that, they liked when it was created, but they haven't been able to update it, or they had to pay to have it updated every time, and so they haven't. And I think that keeping your website up to date is so key in keeping yourself relevant to your audience and making sure that people see what you're up to most recently.
How often, that's something I always thought about, how often do you think you need a refresh? Like when you have your look now that it's time to kind of take all the paint off the walls and put something completely new on there?
Yeah, I think that it sort of depends. I know that a lot of times people create a first website, and a lot of times they'll DIY it themselves, which I actually fully support. I think that it's really helpful to go through that process of building your own website. And I think that sometimes it doesn't make sense to spend a bunch of money on a first website when you don't yet know as a company who you are and the clients that you like to serve. So I think that, if you did DIY a site or you created a first site, I would probably reevaluate things like 2 years in and see, has your client changed? Are you looking to, charge significantly higher rates, and you need to change or elevate the aesthetic of your site to reflect that type of client? I'd say like every 2 years is definitely a great time to revisit it. And if you're looking to make a huge pivot in your business, say, stopping offering wedding photography and instead doing brand photography,
switching genres,
then you probably very much need to update your website.
And how, when you're working with people, I imagine everything is tailor made for each person. Mm-hmm. There must be a lot of back and forth. And when it comes to, are you creating the design and saying, this is what I came up with? Or is there a lot of input from the person saying, I definitely need this, and this on the website?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that we always want to take into account, certain things that clients specifically want on their website. Like if you want a scheduler on your website so that folks can schedule inquiry calls with you, great. Or if you want people to be able to pay for a session in advance, great, we can do that. So like that kind of thing. But a lot of it does come into after we've dug deep into what your offerings are and what your clients are and such, what strategically from a website design strategy point of view needs to happen. And so then we build from there based around the content that we have. So I'll do the majority of the design and the strategy, but then I generally deliver any concepts with a video of me walking them through the concept so that they can hear a bit into why I did something a certain way. And then, we of course revise until it feels like home because, sometimes I miss something the first time around. I am not perfect. So it's collaborative.
How long does it take? I imagine it can take a long time because it's involved to get it right.
Yeah, it's a great question. From start to finish on like a fully custom website, it's generally a month or less. And that will vary from designer to designer. We all have different cadences and flows for how we do things. And there's not any right way to do it. But I'd say a custom site for me is about a month. And if we're customizing an existing template, only about 2 weeks. So it can move pretty quickly if we need it to.
Yeah, we need to have everybody go to digitalgracedesign.com and look through some of the samples that are on there because it can make a huge difference, I think, to somebody's business. And I would say it's like doing your own surgery at home. I guess you could do it, but you want to go to a surgeon to make sure it's done.
Yeah, well, and I think
it's done right
too. Like honoring your time because you could be, editing a bunch of photos instead of, working on your website. And likewise, I should not be editing my own photos. I'm not a photographer. So letting folks sit in their strong suit, I think, is often the best.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do on there, without a doubt. And it's one of the things I struggle with. And I think one thing that works in the minus I've noticed now is that websites, I guess like Squarespace or Wix, make it so easy to change things around that you constantly want to be changing things around. Like I'll look through and say, I'll be like in bed reading or something, and an idea will pop into my head. And I'm like, oh, now I have to go change my website. I think I'm a victim of maybe changing it too much. Is that a bad thing?
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. It's definitely something that I see and sometimes experience myself. If I'm working on a client site and I especially like something that I added for them, well, shoot, maybe I want that too. But it can sometimes turn into kind of a mishmash of different concepts, and knowing when to stop is sometimes key.
I think I have a problem because it's got to be cohesive. And then I'll spend like 11 hours changing something, and I'm like, oh, I should have left it the way I should have left it before. And what I want to do too is switch on to a little topic, a little bonus that we're going to give to people. Something I thought was really smart from you. I'm a little bit of a creeper. I was looking through some of your videos, and this is kind of a free tip. And this is something that I always thought never made sense. And I want to talk about, this is related to that Instagram where people are using those link trees. And I see that all the time. And people, that's not the best thing to do, is it? And why isn't that necessarily the best?
Absolutely. So, we're all on social media these days, and we all have those link in bios on social media. And there are services out there like Linktree where you can have an external page that links to a bunch of your different features. So maybe you've been featured in a magazine, or you want to send people to your services page or your blog, whatever links you want to share. And I think that in concept, it's a really cool idea. You can really direct where people are going. However, if that platform goes down, then your link goes down. And from an SEO standpoint, you're also sending people to an external site that's not...
That's what always bugged me. Yeah, you're not sending them to your website.
Exactly. You want to send people to your website from the get-go so that they can click around from there, causing them to stay on your website longer. And so the video that he's referring to is a tutorial around how to create your own Linktree style page on your own website.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that was a smart tip. But I guess the genesis of that, again, was Instagram only gave you one link. You know, you only were allowed one on your profile page. So that gave you the ability to kind of bring up a few things in there. But why send all that traffic to the Linktree people?
Yeah.
I want them coming to me on my website. So.
And you have a little bit more control around making it match the look and feel of the rest of your site. Versus, just a very straightforward, plain linking page that would be from, that outside provider.
Yeah, I'm going to finish up here. And you also, we only scratched the surface. we only did some scratching here today. So just some scratching on the SEO. And it gets pretty involved. And one thing that you have is a course that people can go in and really dig deeper into this, and I guess it's a video course. You can do it at your own pace, and things like this are well worth whatever you pay for them, because they can pay off many times in the application when you in your website and so forth. So tell everybody a little bit about your course, where they can find that, and how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So I created the Simple Show It SEO course, I guess maybe a year, a little more ago, because I was a little bit frustrated, to be honest, with all of the absolutely beautiful photography sites that I was seeing that were not thinking from the SEO standpoint. And I just wanted folks to have the knowledge at hand to really make that change on their own and feel like they had the knowledge to pull from over time as they continued to build their site. So the Simple Show It SEO course breaks down all of the important on-site SEO concepts, like those page titles and descriptions and text tags and image SEO and blogging and keywords, Google Analytics, Search Console, all of that good stuff, into individual modules where we talk about what they are, what they mean, and then also show you how specifically to implement them on a Show It website. The content itself would be valuable on any platform. You just wouldn't get the implementation if you aren't currently using Show It. But it breaks it down into bite-sized chunks. It's a video walkthrough. You get the knowledge, you get the implementation guidance, and then there's also a workbook too if you're the kind of person that, really needs to have written content as well.
And even someone like me could figure it out?
You could. I feel like you already know so much, which is awesome.
I'm going to do a little practice. I want to seem smart for you when you came on today.
You definitely succeeded.
I may not understand what I'm talking about, but I've got the lingo.
Like you do. Yeah.
All right, I'm a good thinker. That's all I could do. But the course looks really great, and where can they get that course? It looks like it's right on your website. Yeah, just go to
digitalgracedesign.com, and then there's a link in the top navigation that goes directly to that page.
And how long? It looks like there's a bunch of videos in there. How long does that usually take the average person to get through? A couple days? So if you wanted to watch the whole thing back to back to back, you could probably get through it in about 3 hours. That said, I would give yourself the time to stop after each video and implement what you learned, because then it just makes it more bite-sized and more manageable. But yeah, you could totally do all of the implementation even in a week, let's say. So what's great about that is I can watch one section, go back and implement those things, come back a little bit later and do another section. So you can do it at your own pace, and you're not bombarded with a bunch of information all at once, because when you do that, you don't remember any of it.
Absolutely. And I think that doing is always going to be our best way to actually learn something. So that's why we do the implementation portion of it too.
And how about as far as support on these courses? People have questions. Where can they find you? Where can we reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always email me at Sarah with an H at digitalgracedesign.com. You can also find me on all of the social medias at Digital Grace Design.
You did
Yay!
it. You did it. That was a lot of information that we said we covered today, and there's some good stuff in there, and it's a good start. And I think that we learn, it's work. There's no simple fix to this SEO thing. I can't put the word boudoir 500 times on my pages anymore.
No, not anymore.
And I have to write a lot. I'm going to have to start writing, and I'm going to need a lot more sweet tea to stay up late to write blog posts. But I think in the end, like everything else, it's going to be worth it. You put in the work, it's going to pay off. And we're lucky that people like you are out there to help us and guide us through this. So.
Definitely do it. It will be worth it. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I am an open book on that standpoint. So. And
thanks. I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It was very informational. And thanks for your time today.
Absolutely.
Say goodbye to everybody.
Bye. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.